Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
All right, we're back here in Metro Detroit. We made great time from Standing Rock, and we're ready to bore the hell out of you once again. It's Turn the Radio Off, and we're on a legit podcaster schedule, Kyle, where for 5 years we were pretty good at putting out content.
Yeah, once every week. It seemed like even 2-3 times a week at one point.
Yeah, now we're like payday. We happen twice a month if you're lucky. And Kyle, I had 4 days off from work after an extremely busy October, and they were very nice until the fourth day when I was left to my own devices, and I found myself on Facebook getting mad at everything I read. And on top of that, and this is something that I make a point not to do, but on top of that, I started, what's the old saying go? Accepting the invite for every argument that I'm invited to. Yeah. I was off work, no one was home, and I just felt that it was my business to educate everyone on Facebook who I disagreed with, and I just had to step back and say to myself, okay, this is what happens to everyone's angry uncle. They either have too much time at work, or they're retired and they start posting Breitbart stories or even less reputable news sites. And I was on the other side of the political spectrum, but that became me. And I'm seriously thinking. I was seriously thinking of staying off the internet until after this election, which thank God is coming up, and we'll either move on as a country, or the apocalypse will finally happen and put us all out of our misery. But it's almost over nonetheless.
Yeah, I've actually have done a good job of completely withdrawing.
Really?
You know, like, do I still go on the internet? Do I still read things? Yeah. But have I listened and taken in less news and information than I have in years? Yes. Seriously, I used to listen to NPR, like I'd listen to sports radio maybe for a couple hours a day,
right,
and then NPR for the rest of the time. I don't listen to NPR anymore. I don't. I've become so burned out that I just have no interest in hearing any more about either of these candidates.
Well, and it's funny because
the new scandal, which is they're coming like 3 times a day for each candidate now.
Right. It's like each campaign is just throwing crap out there at the walls at a more fevered pitch than normal. And I really feel like this, Kyle. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of staying strong all campaign season. But I feel like the wheels are coming off this last week. I feel like I'm fed up and I've had enough of everyone's crap. And I'm like your crotchety, unpolitically correct grandfather, and I've had enough, and I don't care what comes out of my mouth.
You've gone from uncle to grandfather.
I know. I'm aging rapidly.
Yes, you are. Sorry, a little bit of rust there. I'll go ahead.
See, that doesn't normally happen to us, Kyle, but my brain is short-circuiting.
Yeah. So probably a little bit of rust. I mean, we've done like one show in the past month?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. With me, I used to go on Facebook and on Twitter, and I used to be all a part of the SJW network, and I used to be posting all these atrocious news stories about sexual assault and unarmed black people being gunned down by police.
Look how mad I get at things.
Exactly.
I have a moral compass. Look how mad I am at things.
You know what? I've proven that. I've proven it to everyone who knows me that I'm a somewhat decent human being.
Right. You're a somewhat decent human ball of hate.
So what's
That's
the point?
why we love you.
I mean, I guess there's the whole point maybe of sharing something on social media is to spread the word.
Right.
To increase visibility. But I thought back to a lot of the stuff that I was posting about anyway. Like, say, Eric Garner. There's already a lot of people who knew about this.
Right.
Did they need to know my opinion?
Right, exactly.
Not really. I mean, like...
Well, they need to know you're furious.
Yeah, exactly.
You're so furious you're going to post an article about it.
And it got to the point where I realized that there wasn't much to gain by me posting this stuff.
Right.
There wasn't much to gain by me commenting on anyone's articles, whatever their opinion or belief was. There just wasn't a point to this engagement anymore. There wasn't, because you would get nowhere.
Well,
all you would do is reinforce to the people who already knew that, like, you don't think rape is cool.
Yeah.
And unarmed people being shot by police, you're against that. Okay, all right, let's give you a cookie now.
Right. Well, here's the debate I find myself in more recently. Okay. Hey, this candidate has done these bad things, therefore I'm not voting for them. And I'll say, well, okay, but your candidate is worse because of this. And the other person says, I disagree. Then I say, I disagree. And we say, cool. And we drop it. Four posts tops. Because, I mean, what happens is you start running around in circles. And, you know, we'll talk about some of those issues a little bit later on in the show. But one thing that did actually seem to catch fire and raise visibility this week were these check-ins at the Standing Rock Native American Reservation. What's the proper term? Are they Native American? Is it Native American? Is it Indigenous American now?
I think Native American is cool.
Okay.
I mean, like, they're in Canada, they're called Aboriginals.
Yeah.
Or natives, or just simply natives, or whatever. But here, I think Native American would be the proper term.
Well, the Standing Rock Native American Reservation, I believe that the Sioux tribe is the prevalent tribe on that reservation. It's a huge reservation. I mean, it spans both North Dakota and South Dakota. And this story's been all over my news feed. Not a whole lot of actual news coverage, but I can't tell anymore because I think most people get their news from Facebook. And what the story has been going on since at least April, where there is an oil company that wants to build a pipeline that goes from North Dakota all the way down to Illinois. And there have been large protests that have turned violent between members of the reservation and their supporters, and law enforcement agents. I'm not sure if they're local or if they're federal, but these Native Americans, they're protesting the building of this pipeline because it runs through what they consider sacred land on their reservation. And so this has really been catching fire, and there's a lot of sympathetic folks out there on Facebook who want to help the cause. So I don't know how this got started, who put this out, but there's this meme floating around, I guess, that said the police are using Facebook to figure out who to arrest during these protests, so check in so that you confuse the police and help the protesters and yada, yada, yada. And you know me, I'm skeptical of everything at first on Facebook. But it was weird because people who, you know, I find credible with this stuff started posting it.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking around and you know, I find out that Snopes doesn't have a definitive answer on it. And then, certain folks from the reservation were saying, well, look, we appreciate everyone's willingness to help. However, this is bunk. this isn't really confusing law enforcement. If you want to help us out, here's a bunch of ways you can donate to our GoFundMe and everything. And I'm watching. I'm like, okay, the story doesn't add up, but it's raising awareness to the story, and people mean well, and it's not hurting anything. So God bless. And then I'm thinking, what kind of sociopath starts something like this? And for what reason? Like, who's the person who decided, hey, you know what I think is going to fool a lot of people? Let's do this check-in story to help the protesters and watch it catch fire. Because it's a very convincing story, right? There's a whole lot of backlash against slacktivists, what people say, and the thoughts and prayers crowd, where anytime something bad happens, people will post thoughts and prayers, or they'll post an article and they get someone else saying, hey, well, you're a slacktivist. If you're posting, all you're doing is posting an article, you're not helping anything. So here's something that you could do that allegedly affects change.
But you still don't have to get up to do it.
Right, so it's a very seductive story.
And everyone can see you doing it.
Right, and so a lot of people fell for it. And like I said, a year or two ago, I would have teed off on these quote-unquote slacktivists. I feel bad for them because I feel like they've been kind of taken for a ride, and they meant well, even though they should have done their homework. And to me, it just seems like a really crappy thing for someone to make this up.
I think it's part of them I feel bad for, part of them I laugh at. I can't really tell because you don't know you don't know enough about a lot of these people to tell whether or not they sincerely care about this cause.
Right.
There's a friend of mine, old Luke Diamond Phillips.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Who sent me a bunch of angry messages because he saw us, kind of jabbing at the pipeline check-ins.
Yeah. Aaron Foley, if he still knows this show exists, friend of the show.
Yes.
Editor of Black Magazine, poked fun at him. People got mad at him. They were almost
furious.
They were almost accusing him of going out there and hammering nails into the pipeline itself, when he was just kind of pointing out tongue-in-cheek that
it's not really doing anything.
Right.
He, if anything, I saw it from the angle he was encouraging direct action. And but I know, like, Luke, for example, using my buddy as an example, he's someone who genuinely does care.
Right.
And is doing this in a desperate attempt to try to help in any way, because he can't go from his place in Los Angeles out to North Dakota.
Right. Most people can't drop what they're doing in their life and go protest in North/South Dakota.
And there are some people who genuinely were hoping that they were helping by this. The Cubs must have scored.
Cubs scored.
There are some people who are genuinely hoping that they're helping by doing this, but there are some people who are just like, wait, all I got to do is check in,
right,
and then everybody will think I give a shit?
Right.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, I think there was, what the percentage or the ratio is, I don't really know, but I've seen enough of this going back to the Coney 2012 days where you become weary and you become cynical of anything that is, kind of Facebook activism. And what I did was I read that whole copy and paste message.
Yeah.
Because I thought about checking in myself.
Well, number one, water protectors was spelled wrong. That was my first tip.
And also, if you look at the very bottom, it says, I don't know if this will actually help. So after making it sound for maybe about 200 words, like it will definitely help.
That's the way to trick me, by the way, because I am a skimmer.
Yeah.
I don't read the fine print. You're a fine print reader because you have detailed and nuanced knowledge of a lot of things. I have as our parents would say, the Reader's Digest version of just about everything.
The only thing I don't read the fine print on is those terms and agreements. Yeah, those terms and conditions where
or
they're
Obamacare.
Like, we're going to take all your information and then we're going to be secretly swiping pictures of you to use in ads.
Yeah.
Cool,
I'm a model.
I never read that stuff, the stuff that I should. But no, I read all of this, and it said at the bottom, I don't know if this will actually help.
Right, it won't.
Yeah, and like
well,
there,
you know what, it might...
the person is saying they don't know if this actually helped. This is some theory that they're spitballing.
Well, it'll help if it causes people to look into it. That's it. But then after that, then what?
Yeah, but it would have been just as much as if someone would have figured out a way to start a viral thread about donating to the legal fund,
right?
Which to me sounded like a much more
direct and effective.
Direct, and I mean a tangible way
right.
to give these people aid and assistance.
Well, let's talk about this pipeline for a second too. I don't know a whole lot about it, but what I'm trying to do, and I can't find a good map of where the pipeline actually runs through the reservation, but it's weird because I really did research on this because I really wanted to know. I spent about a half hour kind of figuring out where Standing Rock is on the border of North and South Dakota and where the pipeline runs through. Now, one thing that's pissing a lot of people off, and I think rightfully so, is the reason that the pipeline is running through this reservation is because the folks of Bismarck wanted it rerouted because the people of Bismarck were afraid of what it might do to their drinking water.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Well,
and that affects white people, too.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know what? They're over the Trail of Tears. Let's stick it to them one more time. And I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this pipeline, okay? And it does this weird thing where it starts at a certain point in North Dakota. It goes west, and then it loops back around east. And I don't know if the folks at Standing Rock, they don't want it going through the reservation at all. I don't know if they don't want it running just through certain parts they consider sacred. But I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going to say, Kyle, I think the pipeline should be built because we need to be energy independent and everything. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, couldn't this oil company easily reroute it just a couple miles? Because literally, if they just don't loop it back a certain way at the very northern edge, they'll bypass the entire reservation, and then they can meet up with it where they have it strategically built to not disrupt any major cities. I don't know why. That seems like it could be a very simple solution because the folks of Standing Rock are right. They're right to be pissed because, all right, the honkies up in Bismarck don't want it. Why should it be running through our land? Like I said, these pipelines need to be built, but it seems like there's a solution there somewhere that could easily accommodate all folks. Maybe they just make a deal with the folks of Standing Rock. Okay, tell us what's not, tell us what's not sacred land. We'll lease the land. I mean, it seems like this oil company is digging in its heels where they could have made it easier on themselves. They could have not messed with the Sioux at Standing Rock, and everyone could have lived in peace without having this standoff for the past, November now?
Yeah.
April, May, June, July, August, September. 7 months.
Yeah. Well, and that's, Mike, that's the thing. It's just an imperial attitude.
Right.
Imperialistic attitude.
It's just a rich dick waving his dick around saying, you can't tell me what to do.
Manifest destiny. It's
right.
It's like, seriously, it's just it's an updated form of that. It's saying, well, these are just a bunch of Redskins.
Right.
Who's going to care?
Right.
If and then people are showing that they care, and then they're like, oh well, if you guys are going to dare step to us,
right?
Right.
I mean, we'll crush you with our money.
Exactly. And I think a lot of folks were understandably confused and upset as how the Oregon militia was able to get away with what they got away with, be acquitted on charges, and then you see the really militarized crackdowns on the protesters at Standing Rock.
And a lot of people could say, oh, well, they're just showing you the worst parts. Well, you know what? If those worst parts happen once, that's excessive.
Happened.
Right.
Yes.
It's excessive. If you only have one, you're showing on a loop. That's excessive. So if you have enough to come out with new videos every few days, that's way too excessive.
Yeah, but I think two things to be considered in these decisions, and if they could actually leak into the judicial system, I mean, technically they're not supposed to, but who knows? You have the gun lobby behind the militia, and then you have the oil lobby behind.
Wow. Bring in big tobacco, and we got ourselves a three-way Texas tornado match.
Yeah, well, exactly. But what I'm saying is that who do you have backing these police actions?
Yeah.
Who?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you have an oil company.
Right.
Who do you have backing the militia? The NRA.
Right. No one's backing the protesters except for themselves.
Exactly, and that's why I like donating to the Legal Defense Fund, because as Peter Thiel said, if you're only a single-digit millionaire, you don't have fair access to our legal system. It doesn't work for you.
You're talking about Trump supporter, PayPal CEO Peter Thiel?
Yes.
Yeah.
The one who sued Gawker out of business. Yeah. Excuse me, but point is, there's big money behind these causes. There's big money behind the Oregon militia cause, or at least somebody they feel can promote their cause.
Right.
And then there's obviously big money behind crushing the protesters and getting this pipeline built. When you have all that power and influence, yeah, it could leak into law enforcement. Yeah, it could leak into the judicial system. I mean, I don't think that as sanctimonious as those two branches of our government are supposed to be, certainly. Well, they've been corrupt in the past, and they could certainly be corrupt now.
I guess maybe that just shows you the power of, quote-unquote, the people, right? Because this has been a standoff since April. I don't think any of the pipeline has been built, at least through that area. They may be building the other areas where by the way, there's no friction any other location of this pipeline. So you think that you think that whoever's building this pipeline could find somewhere in North and South Dakota to run this thing through that's not going to upset a whole bunch of people. But these protests have been going on since April, and it's hung up in court right now. And so yes, theoretically you could have the big oil lobby with law enforcement goons out there, but it's still not getting built. And I guess finally, for once, as massive and as confrontational as this protest has been, it's working. It's an effective protest, at least for now. I mean, it's still a stalemate, and they're still wrestling around, and we still don't know what the outcome's going to be. But at least for right now, they're holding their ground. Yeah, and that's what we can hope for, because I can't get over to those protests. Right.
If I check in on Facebook, it's not really going to do anything. And that's the thing that also struck me, too, about this. Where's the logic?
Right. It's not
behind, they said that it would disrupt the police ability to track protesters.
Right. It's not like police are on Facebook looking to retroactively arrest people who were there.
What is the difference between one protester and another, though?
Right.
You know what I mean? How would this really confuse them? And also, if they're seeing these check-ins, can't you click on the pictures of the people checking in and visibly identify them?
Right.
These are people who are supposed to identify assailants for a living.
Right. Well,
I think they can tell the difference between a protester in North Dakota and someone checking in from Ferndale, Michigan.
Right. Well, like I said, hearts are in the right place. Didn't do a whole lot of research or think it through. But like I said, this is something I would skewer these folks for a couple years ago, but I don't know. I feel like they've been taken for a ride. Obviously, I don't feel as bad for them as the Sioux Native Americans who are having their land and lives torn apart.
Oh, right, for sure, certainly.
But as a white man, I feel a little bit bad for the Facebook check-inners, if that's the proper word, but not that bad. Turn the radio off on the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Hi, time for timer. What? No time for breakfast? Now look, since 6 o'clock last night you haven't eaten a bite. Come on, I'll show you why that's really not the way for a growing kid to start a busy day. Here we are inside your body, and this noisy empty space is your stomach getting angry because there's no food in the place. Uh-oh, let's find some food fast. Now listen, I don't want you to think this is the best way to eat breakfast, but in case you can't cook, and if you haven't time for a good cereal and a well-balanced meal, then this quickie breakfast is better than nothing at all, okay? Hey, here's orange juice and milk and fruit just waiting to be taken. And bless my soul, right here's a bowl with one cold piece of steak in, a hard-boiled egg or chicken leg or cheese or luncheon meat, or a peanut butter sandwich. Any time of day is a treat. So to keep your mom from grumbling and stop that stomach rumbling and keep your legs from stumbling when you play, you gotta eat some kind of breakfast every day.
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live!
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Turn the radio off. There you go. I'm drunk.
All right, so I was hesitant to bring up the World Series because I was thinking by the time this podcast is posted, the Cleveland Indians could be World Series champions. But right now the Cubs are currently up 3-0 in which inning, Kyle?
3-0, and hold on, I'll actually
They just
check
went
Twitter
to commercial, damn it.
I know, they did. I think it's the third inning.
In the third inning.
Bottom of the second, so they're going into the third, yeah.
Right. So, of course, it's Tuesday night, and the Indians lead the series 3-2. So if they come back, they could still win tonight. But, as you know, Kyle, I'm a casual sports fan at best. And Saturday night, I was just planning on flipping between the game and whatever horror movie AMC was showing. I think it was one of the Halloweens that nobody watched. But I flipped it on just as Joe Madden was putting in Aroldis Chapman. I always have a hard time with his first name.
You mean Sunday night?
Was it Sunday night? That's right. It was Sunday night.
Yeah.
I had Monday off. Okay, so it was Sunday night. He put in Chapman in the seventh inning. And was that a desperation move, by the way, putting your closer in the seventh inning with only one out? You're the baseball guru here.
No, I don't think it was. I actually really like the move, and it's one of the reasons why. I mean, I'm not fully on the Cubs bandwagon like a lot of folks, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Cubs winning for a couple reasons, and Joe Madden's one of them. He's always been one of my favorites, and that's because of outside-of-the-box strategy.
Right.
The idea that a closer doesn't just have to come into the ninth inning.
Right. Well, it wasn't the height of drama, but it was compelling enough television to keep me watching. And so I'm watching, and I'm casually rooting for the Cubs. I think it'd be very interesting to see what Theo Epstein's place will be in baseball lore if he, quote-unquote, breaks two curses.
Yeah, I might need to bring him over to the Tigers next.
Yeah, right. How bad would you feel as a Tigers fan if you brought Theo Epstein over and he still couldn't win a World Series?
And they still get swept in the World Series?
Yeah. But so I'm watching it, and I'm watching Chapman. He gets his two guys out in the seventh, and I'm watching the eighth and the ninth, and Wrigley Field is jacked. This, it seemed like Wrigley Field exercised the wave of loser mentality after Moises Alou threw that hissy fit when Bartman reached out. And it was a foul ball.
I remember you, of all people, got extra fired up after that Bartman 30 for 30.
Well, because
I remember you went on a long rant about that, and it was good.
Yeah, because what happened was everyone blames Bartman, but the result of Steve Bartman's interference was it was a strike. That was it. And Moises Alou just throws a hissy fit, and then all of Wrigley Field just goes silent, and they just accept that they're going to lose now because of the curse. If Moises Alou would have just walked back to left field or wherever the hell he was playing, that collapse probably wouldn't have happened. But yeah, so I'm watching Chapman, and it's very exciting. And during the seventh inning, they show Eddie Vedder butchering "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and that was kind of charming because they showed all the celebrities from Chicago, and you're kind of on the bandwagon. And then after Chapman got that last out, they started singing this "Go Cubs Go" song in the stands, and I don't know why. But I really hated this song when I heard it. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't care either way who wins this World Series. But I'm over it now. I'd still like to see the Cubs win it. But Kyle,
they're two very annoying fan bases. I mean,
well, you and I were talking about it Saturday night, I believe it was, or Friday night. I had a 4-day weekend, so I lost all track of time. Yeah, the Red Sox have been good. They've won. I'm sorry, the White Sox. The White Sox have been good. The White Sox have won a World Series within the last decade and a half. So why are the Cubs everyone's favorite team?
That's something that I've never quite been able to understand either, because they've been the favorite team all the way through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s,
everyone
90s.
I know from Chicago loves the Cubs, where the White Sox in the last 10 years took a turn being one of the more dominant teams in the league.
People literally forgot that they won a World Series.
That was the thing on Deadspin. I forget, was it ESPN? They were counting up all of Chicago's championships, and they left off the White Sox World Series.
And a couple other outlets, too, that I can't remember at the moment. But, but the White Sox, I think it's because, man, I don't know. I can't, I think it's because the White Sox are from the South Side. And that's known as the bad part of town, the ugly part of Chicago, the less desirable part of Chicago.
Is that where those cheaters won the Little League World Series, and then all of a sudden they found one rule broken and they stripped those kids away?
Yeah, it was. And the only celebrity I've seen identify with the White Sox was Barack Obama. Yeah, that's it. Other than that, I got to applaud Barry too. He has stayed away from the Cubs.
Yeah, good.
And I really like that about him.
You know why? Probably in Chicago, if he tried to jump over the Cubs fan base they'd be worse to him than Fox News, and then the White Sox would be like, you can't do that. I bet you it's a mortal sin in Chicago to jump fan bases.
I don't think it is, though.
No?
I don't. I have a feeling there's a lot of people who claim allegiances to both teams, especially with them being in the American and National League.
That's true.
But I have a feeling that if I lived in Chicago... See, I don't know. I have a hard time deciding because I hate Hawk Harrelson. So that's one reason
I'd be
why
White Sox all the way because, I loved me some Big Hurt back in the day.
But I hate yuppies. And that's all Chicago fans are is rich, upper middle class.
Wrigleyville, bars and restaurants, Kyle, bars and restaurants.
Yeah, upper middle class to rich white people, and they're, just, ugh. What Cubs fans are gross, but at least they're not overtly racist,
right?
Like Indians fans,
right?
And for me, that's the one thing about Cleveland, aside from not wanting to see that city win 2 titles in 1 year. You got your Cavaliers,
right? You got your little LeBron ring.
You did. That's enough. Okay. How about you go in another 70-year slump or whatever?
Right.
Okay. I've already had enough of Cleveland and the idea of them being a redemptive story and me trying to feel any sympathy for that city. And I've said it on this show multiple times. I'm going to keep going back to it because Chief Wahoo just reinforces it. Mm-hmm. Cleveland is full of racists. That is a racist-ass city. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I say this because I had anecdotal evidence before, but now, when the Indians are once again on the biggest stage, they're in the World Series for the first time in 19 years, people are just digging in their heels on Chief Wahoo.
Right, because they're on the national stage, so there's certain people who say, oh, that's a terrible logo, and then people, you're undermining the allegiance to their gang, which, is their fan base. And so what happens is they say, hey, you can't talk about our mascot like that. We'll show you.
If I was an Indians fan, what I would say is, it is a terrible, horrible, awful, racist logo. It's embarrassing that my baseball team still wears this logo, that my city takes this logo on with pride. And I would say we have a beautiful Block C alternate logo that I don't know why they just don't go with all the time.
You know what?
It's that easy. They already came up with a different logo,
Right.
and I've been seeing them try to slowly phase out Chief Wahoo over the past few years. But then the World Series comes, and suddenly the Indians are wearing the Chief Wahoo ball cap for every game.
Yeah.
During the regular season, I would say, I mean, I didn't watch every Indians game, of course, but I watched a lot of them being a Tigers fan.
Mm-hmm.
They wore the Black Sea hats. They wore the Black Sea helmets and hats more often, way more often than they wore the Chief Wahoo logo. And then suddenly the World Series comes around, the playoffs come around, they're wearing nothing but the Chief Wahoo.
You know what's always fascinating to me? And, I can understand how the Chief Wahoo controversy has been reignited because the Indians are in the World Series. But sort of kind of how random and arbitrary these debates about sports team logos come and go. Like, do you remember, was it the beginning of last season that the fervor over the Washington Redskins name and the Washington Redskins logo fired up again?
Yeah.
And that sort of came out of
2 years ago, and
Yeah.
people started referring to them as the Washington football team and
Right.
refusing to say Reds. I think
Right.
most of those people have gone back to calling them Redskins
Right.
quietly.
It's weird because it kind of came out of nowhere. Of course, it's always simmering, but it came to a head out of nowhere, and then it went away out of nowhere. And then in a couple of years, it'll come back, and it's sort of like, okay, what's the catalyst for these debates to reach a fevered pitch and then kind of dissipate? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it was CBS. CBS pulled a real puss move when they said that, oh, we're going to leave it up to our commentators whether they're going to say Redskins or not. Great. So now you're going to assign pretty much a political affiliation to every person who works for you based on what they call the Washington football team.
And it really did become a polarizing issue like that seemed to go along party lines, which again was bizarre. But if you want to be a conservative and claim using the Redskins as a proper name, go ahead. That's fine with me. That's the other thing about the Indians. I was just mentioning how they've worn the Chief Wahoo logo for every game this series. Now, this I might be mistaken about, but I'm fairly certain the Indians have also worn their navy-colored jerseys that have Chief Wahoo on the sleeve for every game this series.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but the Indians have these nice, crisp, clean, beautiful alternate Indians jerseys that just say Indians in black lettering, and they're kind of like on a cream-colored jersey. They have that they could be wearing that doesn't have the Chief. Again, they have an alternate set of uniforms that they could be wearing on the biggest stage that doesn't have the logo, and instead they're wearing both the jersey with the logo on the sleeve and the hat. With the Chief Wahoo logo, and you got Indians fans in red face taunting people, daring people.
There had to have been a conscious decision by the franchise.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and you know what? Maybe it wasn't outwardly racist. Maybe like, oh well, this is our legacy, and we, that logo is part of our history, and we're gonna honor that history, and then, hey, here's 3 Native Americans who are cool with it, so everything's all right. Because they always dig out someone. They always dig someone out who doesn't have a problem with it.
In the case of the Washington Redskins, not always someone who is a Native American, which is they got busted for doing multiple times for having people pretending to be Native American to support their cause. But what it does is it empowers people to go into Indians games and go out to bars and walk the Cleveland streets dressed as Chief Wahoo.
Right.
Dressed with the red face paint, with the headdress, and getting people's faces about it. Getting confrontational about it, because if you want to cut this off, cut it off at the head. Cut it off with the team. Because what are the fans? Yeah, there could be fans who still wear, retro jerseys.
Right.
A fan can pull out an old Kenny Lofton jersey or an Albert Bell jersey with Chief Wahoo on it. Yeah, but majority of the fans are going to want to buy new merchandise. They're going to go the way the team goes. If the team is telling them that it's okay,
right,
they're going to be dumb enough to believe whatever the team tells them. If the team says, no, this isn't okay anymore, we're changing our logo or we're changing our name, and here's a bunch of new merchandise for you to buy.
Well, and then
they'll go out and buy it, and they'll buy into it, and they'll believe it.
But would them getting rid of Chief Wahoo be enough? Because there's the team name itself, which is not the proper term for Native Americans, as we were talking about earlier in the last segment, talking about Standing Rock.
That it will probably never.
I mean, would that be
I don't ever
compromise?
see that changing, but I think if they get rid of the logo, I think it would be
I guess
as much of a compromise as you could make.
With these things, I guess I would always.
I felt guilty saying that. It didn't feel good coming out, but I mean that's just the way it realistically is. I can't see the Indians a charter.
Addison Russell grand slam, by the way.
Well, that's the end of this game.
Cubs up 7-0.
I can't see it turning around, to where they're gonna an American American League charter team is going to change the name of their franchise.
I guess with me, the way I feel about it, I guess I'd have to find a way to take the temperature of the majority of Native Americans, which there's no possible way to do that. If the majority of Native Americans are offended by it, then change it. If they're not, no big deal. But like I said, there's no way to figure that out.
No.
And you know what? And fans will never do it because you're right, Kyle. The team has to lead the way, not the fans. I mean, if fans stopped buying merchandise with the Chief Wahoo on it. But it seems to be that sort of, anytime Whitey's questioned, it's a very powerful marketing tool.
Yeah, it really is because it makes noise because people don't like it.
Right. We're gonna tell those sissies that we're not growing up this politically correct, this PC crap. Oh wow, we got to take a break. Let's turn the radio off on the internet.
Turn the radio off with Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
Okay, here goes. I know more about cooking dinner for a party of 12 than I do about packing a lunch for a 12-year-old. I know kids like things like PB&J, pigs in a blanket. Oh, and fish sticks. They do love fish sticks. Fillets I get, but sticks? What part of the fish does the stick come from? I know I can read a cookbook that'll tell me how to make a red wine reduction. But where are the cookbooks that can teach me how to cut the crusts off bologna sandwiches? Oh, maybe we can compromise on mac and cheese. Can you make that with brie? Everybody likes brie, right?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to push your food around their plate. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit AdoptUsKids.org for more information. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Your non-stop alt-talk alternative for 1 hour a week. Turn the radio off. Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Maybe we'll get through this episode without talking at length about the election, because next week I have a feeling we'll be doing the show Wednesday, the day after Election Day. So
Confessions of a
Potentially Perfect Parent came back on. But I feel like next week we'll have a lot to talk about, because I said going into this into Election Day, we're going to find out we've learned a lot. What we've learned is going to depend on who wins. So I'm sure we'll talk at length about that. But our friend Kwame Kilpatrick has popped back up in the news, Kyle.
Oh boy!
And he's popped back up in the news because there's a petition going around to grant him clemency.
Oh, boy.
Saying that, was it 28-year sentence he received?
Yeah.
For a laundry list of felonies, saying that it's way too severe and that his sentence should be reduced and maybe even ended immediately. And, I'm watching this, Kyle, and I'm trying to think back to what exactly Kwame Kilpatrick did. And then as I went down that rabbit hole, I remember, it's a long, winding, multi-year maze of just, I don't know what to call it, fuckery.
Yeah, it's very, very bad stuff. And of course, there was the, possibility that he he killed a stripper. Well,
do you want to try to recount from the beginning? Maybe I'll try to recount, and you can correct me or add anything I've left off.
Well, in any case, he hosted a party and a stripper ended up dead.
Right. So this all started in 2002. He allegedly hosted a party at the Manoogian Mansion. There was an exotic dancer, allegedly, who was there, and she was found dead. And then, I don't know exactly if it was a couple months or a couple years later, there was an investigation into said party. Mike Cox, at the time, the prosecutor, who was a Republican, I think,
if I recall correctly, yes.
Said he didn't have enough evidence to say the party happened. And I believe that there was a police investigation by the DPD in which Gary Brown, the chief at the time, was fired, which led him to press charges in a whistleblower lawsuit. In that whistleblower lawsuit, under oath, Kwame Kilpatrick and Christine Beatty said that they did not have an extramarital affair.
But they did.
What was the result of that whistleblower lawsuit, by the way?
You know what?
I think Kwame got off scot-free.
He got away with that one.
He was slippery, wasn't he?
It was found that he did have that affair with Christine Beatty. We all remember Heel Perkins reading those texts.
Yes, which has been, I think some talk shows in town still use it, and God damn, is he smooth. He is, you know what, Billy D. Williams is just jealous of how smooth Heel Perkins is.
I love Heel Perkins.
Heel Perkins is one, today, two news anchors retired, Carmen Harlan and Quinette Jameson. Unfortunately, she had to step down because of complications of MS. When Heel Perkins steps down, I'm going to be devastated.
Yeah.
And I don't even watch him every night. But when I watch him, I believe every word that man tells me.
Hopefully he still has a few more years left in the tank.
Oh, my God. Don't ever leave us, Heel. Anyway, so, yes, those text messages surfaced, which demonstrated that both Kwame Kilpatrick and Christine Beatty lied under oath.
Mm-hmm.
Federal offense. I believe that's what sent Kwame to jail. Christine, she got a reduced sentence, probably made a deal or whatever, and then in came and then there was more stuff that he did that was illegal that wasn't necessarily related to that. There was the Synagro, I think that was a sludge hauling contract which he meddled with, and it turns out he had 20-some felonies racked up against him. Right.
Yeah.
On top of that, he had to pay the city of Detroit $1 million restitution, which there's no way in hell he's ever going to pay that back.
Yeah, he did. I mean, there was a lot of money that got drained out of the city when he was mayor.
Right. And and finally, it seemed like Detroit emerged out of that, because I think the day he was it the day he was sentenced, Kevin Orr was announced as the emergency manager of Detroit?
I can't remember exactly the timeline, but it was shortly after.
Anyway, that's immaterial. So yeah, I'm looking at this, and of course it's been a while, so a lot of people forgot what Kwame Kilpatrick did, but we kind of just ran through it. And a friend of mine made a great point. If he got 1 year for every felony that he was charged with, he'd still be in the slammer for over 20 years.
Right.
And yes, he didn't kill anybody, but he took a city that was already on the ropes and fleeced it almost to the point of no return for his own benefit.
And that's what really bothers me, is that there were so many Detroiters that still to this day stand by him for reasons that I just don't understand, that he took advantage of.
Well, I think what he did is he did a very good job of playing the us versus them card, which had some truth to it, but he took it and he really hammered it home with people that kind of like Donald Trump. Right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's speaking out against me is part of the conspiracy.
There's some parallels there for sure.
Yeah.
Same personality, I think. Yeah.
Right. That's very interesting. And this is where I come down on it, Kyle. I don't care if Kwame Kilpatrick's in jail or if he's not. Just keep him out of public office and keep him the hell out of Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that argument that's all you need.
I mean, if
to just keep. I mean, if he's free, whatever. But because what does he got to do? But if you keep him out of Detroit, but that's the thing. How do you keep him out of Detroit?
Exactly.
Because he has so many connections back here, and there are so many people who are ready to get him back in the fold. You think he doesn't have a line into Detroit right now?
I mean, he probably has one right now from prison.
Yeah, right. Probably to the police department.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like anything Kwame Kilpatrick can do as a free man, he can do from jail. But
that's what people have to remember, that he actually was found guilty of these crimes with evidence, and that there was more stuff he got away with because the evidence was a little shaky. So that's something to consider. Now, I understand that there are people who feel like he was railroaded and like he was made an example of by angry suburbanites. And I remember the day that he was sentenced, I remember hearing a lot of bloodlust in people's voices for people who never go to the city anymore, for people who weren't directly affected by him.
And I'm sure it's very easy to point at those people and say, see, those are the people who want Kwame locked up.
Yeah, but there are people who are rational people, and who are level-headed and who aren't necessarily racist, that just want justice for all the money that he stole from the city, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I remember my sister was telling me that too. She's like, "Oh, there's a lot of there's a lot of racism in this," and yeah, you know what? I'm sure there, just like anything. There's probably a ton of people who just wanted to see a powerful black man fall. But there is a lot of people who really wanted to see a promising young black leader fulfill his potential, who were let down by a guy who turned out to be a crook.
And that's exactly what this was a case of. And I can't see it any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, can I see the skeeziness and some people's reactions to his imprisonment?
Right.
Certainly I can. Like I said, it seemed like there's a little bit too much glee in their voice because the point is the damage was done.
Yeah.
And it's going to take decades for that damage to be turned around. I mean, Dan Gilbert can come in and just buy as many buildings as he wants. There's so much disproportion caused by a lot of what Kwame did. Now, could that money be reinvested responsibly to benefit more people in the neighborhoods of Detroit? Certainly. But the point is a lot of what happened to Detroit was systemic leading up to Kwame, and then Kwame put a new spin on it.
Sure. He took it from the minor leagues to the show, so to speak.
I mean, in a sense, that Detroit was screwed over by a lot of state, federal, and county regulations that really set Detroit up to fail in the decades before Kwame Kilpatrick came onto the scene. He's not to blame for that, but he did do a lot of damage through the government and abuse of power and city corruption that Again, he has to be liable for that. Has to be. Mm-hmm. And he's culpable, and he's serving his time. I leave him there. And I don't think this will go anywhere, but I'm nervous. And I guess if he gets out of jail again, what skin is it off my teeth? But
well, and I mean, it's a change.org petition, and it's looking for 100,000 signatures. So, but what happens once you get the 100,000 signatures? The only thing that has to happen is the White House has to respond. Yeah. And, I mean, literally, a White House response will just be like, the White House is currently not looking into this issue at this time. That's it. That's it. So, with all these signatures, all you're going to get is a very very polite form letter with White House stationery, and that's it.
Yep, and that's and that's probably where it will die. But I don't know. I mean, it's certainly got some traction, and Kwame was a very prominent and polarizing figure. And you look back 15 years ago, he was seen as a rising star.
Yeah,
and obviously that's changed.
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't get caught, or if he stayed on the straight and narrow, he'd be a senator by now. Hell, maybe if he had a decent spin team, he might be eyeballing 2018 as governor. I don't know. I mean, you know what? He could have. I bet you he could have made a whole lot of hay out of this, a whole lot more hay out of this Flint water thing.
Oh, he could have.
You know what? That might have been his chance. If you think about it, if Kwame was a little slicker and getting away with it, he might be our governor in 2018.
He could have, because I think he would have been a good voice with Flint. Maybe, but I
know
mean,
what? If I
then again, how many social issues did he really stand up for, though, when he was mayor?
Right, but, I mean, he could have been very politically expedient and saw an opportunity to lambaste the governor, talking as someone from a poor city or as a disadvantaged city. I mean, I think if he played it right, he could have jumped on that thing all the way up to Lansing.
Yeah, that maybe. I mean, that's where I think Mike Duggan is headed eventually. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be as soon as some people think, but I think maybe in another 5.
Yeah,
I'll say 2 terms.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so give
another
him
8
2
years.
full terms.
Okay,
yeah.
Another 8 years. Yeah, 8-ish years. I guess that'd be 10 years with these 2 terms. Anyway, we're doing math. I got to get out of here anyway. We're out of time. Thanks for listening, Paul. Bye.